Coming up on Cannabis Coast to Coast News this week, Matt Goetz is out as President-elect Trump's choice for AG. Pam Bondi is in, but is that good or bad news for federal cannabis reform? And add in the nomination of Dr. Oz to run Medicare in the new president's cabinet, and you have to wonder if reform will be a priority in the 119th Congress. We hear from Morgan Fox, the political director of NORML, and Andrew Behringer in Washington, D.C. Plus, a DEA judge continues to load the deck with prohibitionist groups for that December 2nd DEA hearing on rescheduling, and the FDA finally approves a clinical trial of medical cannabis as a treatment for PTSD through VA doctors. And a group of congressional lawmakers joined the Last Prisoner Project and other advocacy groups urging outgoing President Joe Biden to pardon past low-level cannabis crimes.
He would like us to take his ashes, mix it in with some soil, and grow a marijuana plant and smoke him.
Yes, that's YouTuber Rossana Pancino smoking a joint on camera, fulfilling her dead father's last wish to toast his memory with weed that is laced with her father's ashes. So that's okay on YouTube because they can make money on that while they suppress educational content and news on the industry? Only in America, only on Cannabis Coast to Coast News with Alaina Pinto. Next.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cannabis Coast to Coast News, PCM TV's weekly production of cannabis news. I'm Alaina Pinto. When people ask, where can you get this news besides on YouTube? We say, download the PCM TV app. It's free and contains the most watched videos produced by PCM TV over the past 3 years. The QR code on the screen will take you right to the App Store or Google Play. And then every week, the most recent news will be available to play with one touch. First up this week, the transition of a new administration that continues to have a slight pro-cannabis slant. This week saw one of them, the controversial Matt Goetz, withdrawing his nomination by Trump to become the next attorney general. Then Trump nominated Pam Bondi as his replacement. Historically, she has not been as pro-cannabis as Goetz is. When she was the Attorney General of Florida for 8 years, she fought to get an adult use ballot question removed in Florida. She also has the reputation of doing what she is told by Republican Party leaders. So if those leaders pass reform, she may not block it. But like everything in cannabis standard time in Washington, D.C., this fight to end prohibition will be ongoing in 2025 and the 119th Congress. This week, Trump named his pick for the director of Medicare. It's TV personality Dr. Matt Oz. Dr. Oz has been preaching the medicinal benefits of the plant for years on his show, but he is not a huge supporter for adult use. So the game of political nomination approval is up next as the transition to the next administration in Washington, D.C. continues. Our man in D.C. is Andrew Behringer, and he takes a look at what this might mean for any kind of federal cannabis reform.
I'm Andrew Behringer with the Washington, D.C. report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. In a sudden turn of events, former Representative Matt Goetz has withdrawn his name from consideration for Attorney General, leading President-elect Trump to announce former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi as his new nominee. This change signals a potential pivot in federal cannabis policy as Bondi's record stands in stark contrast to Goetz's pro-legalization stance. Now, during her tenure as Florida's Attorney General from 2011 to 2019, Bondi consistently opposed cannabis reform, including actively fighting against medical cannabis legalization. She notably defended the state's ban on smokable medical cannabis, though ultimately lost that legal battle. Her previous role on Trump's Commission on Combating Drug Addiction and Opioid Crisis also revealed concerns about cannabis legalization going forward. In a parallel development, Trump has tapped Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now, Kennedy's nomination comes after a notable political journey from Democratic presidential candidate to independent and finally to Trump supporter. As potential HHS secretary, Kennedy would oversee the FDA and could significantly influence federal drug policy. Kennedy's approach to cannabis differs a lot from Bondi's, as he advocates for full legalization and taxation. If confirmed, he would push for more aggressive cannabis reform, potentially going beyond the Biden administration's recommendation to reschedule cannabis to a Schedule III. Now, these appointments present a striking contrast in cannabis policy as it approaches within the same administration with Bondi's historical restrictive stance at justice and Kennedy's reform-minded position at HHS, potentially setting the stage for an interesting policy dynamic ahead. Well, that's me. I'm Andrew Behringer, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
One more note on the DEA's latest delay tactics on the rescheduling process. The next hearing that was postponed and then rescheduled is now back on the calendar for December 2nd. There are 25 prospective testimonies scheduled to appear in front of the DEA on that day, but some have been disqualified by the DEA judge overseeing this process. Plus, some have dropped out. There are reports now that there are more than 50% of the groups and individuals scheduled to give testimony who are prohibitionists, and many of them want cannabis to stay at Schedule 1. Of course, all of this won't matter if the new Republican-controlled Congress wants to create reform in their own image and agenda. The biggest question is, can the lobbyists in D.C. convince lawmakers to make federal cannabis reform a priority? And will President Joe Biden step up and use his expiring executive pardon power to impact the thousands of low-level cannabis possession convictions that are still in place?
This is an issue about prioritization, not necessarily support. And it's also, I think, does present some real opportunities. We have a lot of opportunities to try to get the Biden administration to do as much as it can when it comes to pardons and clemency in the remainder of his presidency. And I think that we also have an opportunity to really build up a significant amount of support in terms of co-sponsorships for existing legislation so that we can help pave the way for faster reintroductions in the 119th Congress.
One more note from Washington, D.C. This past week, 67 members of Congress sent a memo to President Biden to enact some meaningful executive pardons before he leaves office. It may be the best way to keep the reform movement going, since it's doubtful this lame duck Congress will be able to get anything done before January, and that includes the next farm bill. However, this week, the Senate actually created a draft for the next farm bill that does address the growth of intoxicating hemp products that have become a bipartisan target at the federal and state levels. Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow introduced that new draft of the next farm bill, which now means the House has one and now the Senate has one. However, both versions have some issues that will not close the loopholes that the 2018 version created. One was the vague definition of hemp as having only 0.3% THC. That caused the loophole that allowed the emergence of the intoxicating, unregulated products that found their way into convenience stores, smoke shops, and gas stations. The fact that lawmakers continue to focus on THC percentage as the one intoxicating cannabinoid in the plant once again exposes the lack of knowledge about how this plant works with the endocannabinoid system that is present in all mammals. This lack of knowledge by lawmakers is also being practiced by thousands of consumers who make the same mistake when they make when buying decisions in dispensaries about their legal adult use. The educational process and regulatory approach to cannabis sativa has to change if a set of long-lasting federal reforms can be introduced into law. A report by the U.S. Health and Human Services and CDC released this past fall suggested that an approach based more on education than prohibition is the type of reform that would be most effective. In the meantime, legal states continue their up and down existence, and we start our state-by-state roundup in Michigan, where prices and sales continue to fall year over year. Here's Amie Carter.
I'm Amie Carter with Michigan Weedsters for this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Flourish is shutting down its $46 million grow facility in Adrian, laying off 46 employees by the end of the month. The company struggled with profitability as cannabis prices dropped 21% this year, averaging around $73 per ounce. The CEO cited overwhelming competition from outdoor growers and operational challenges, including a faulty dehumidification system. While the Adrian site contributed 20,000 pounds of product annually, Flourish will continue operations at its more efficient Grand Rapids facility. In October, Michigan cannabis sales reached $262.9 million, marking a 4.3% decline from September of last year. Medical cannabis sales fell drastically, down 70% from last year, while adult use sales grew by 33%. The average price for a pound of adult use flower decreased to $1,562. I think many Michiganders can agree that quality has drastically went down along with the price. The great thing about Michigan is that you can grow your own or find a caregiver. I think everyone can agree that quality is essential. I know many of us are gearing up to head to Las Vegas for MJ BizCon 2024. Michigan Weedsters will be there for the second year running, hosting the Michigan State Takeover at 3 p.m. December 5th at the Hub. I will also be doing a panel with Courage and Cannabis to promote the book series. Join us at Planet 13 December 5th at 5 p.m. If you are planning on attending MJ BizCon and you own a business or a brand, please contact us because we will be there doing interviews. I'm Amie Carter with the Michigan Cannabis Report for this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Despite all those market fluctuations in Michigan, that state continues to challenge California as the nation's #1 cannabis market. The Golden State has made a mess of its cannabis market ever since they moved from medical only to adult use legalization in 2016. This week, one of the oldest, most well-known and successful California cannabis companies has gone into receivership. Way back in 2006, advocate Steve D'Angelo, the founder of Last Prisoner Project, joined forces with Dress Wedding and started Harborside out of Oakland. In the beginning, it was a vertically integrated medical nonprofit and built it into one of the biggest and most important dispensary chains in the state. In January of 2018, Steve D'Angelo sold the first legal cannabis in the state to adults. A year later, they went public on the Canadian Stock Exchange, and then 2 years later sold to State House Holdings. That company moved quickly into acquisition mode and now is shutting down and going into receivership. The bidding for the company's assets could bring in $120 million, and that would be the largest company in receivership in cannabis history. In the meantime, the capital of California, Sacramento, is opening their doors for cannabis social clubs. The city council there voted 5-4 this week to start to distribute social club licenses in 2025. The ventilation issue of secondhand smoke is the biggest concern to regulators and lawmakers, but improvements to cleaning the air and smoke accumulated with indoor facilities seems to be easing those concerns. One state that seems to have the social club movement operational enough to be studied is Nevada, and specifically Las Vegas, where Tina Tasaka continues to offer insight on the emergence of these types of clubs in the adult entertainment capital of the world, plus a look at the tribal initiatives in this country. Here's Tina.
I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies, and this is the Nevada and Tribal Nations Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. MG Magazine spotlighted a recent article from Mitch Chargo, a tribal lawyer specializing in tribal cannabis in Minnesota, Indigenous Opportunities in Cannabis. Chargo describes the significant economic benefits of entering the cannabis market, including new revenue streams, job opportunities for tribal members, and entrepreneurial opportunities. To summarize the article from Mr. Chargo, the cannabis industry provides Native American tribes an opportunity to boost economies and create jobs within tribal sovereignty. It diversifies revenue streams and funds essential services like education and healthcare. Cannabis operations also generate jobs in cultivation, production, regulatory, compliance, and retail, while fostering skill development in agriculture and business, promoting self-reliance and long-term community growth. In Las Vegas Review-Journal, Clark County Sheriff Kevin McMahill stated that legalizing marijuana in Nevada has not curbed the black market. Speaking with venture capitalists Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz, he noted that illegal cannabis sales often leads to violence, including homicides. McMahill emphasized the need to address behaviors linked to these sales. Experts identified the black market as a significant challenge, partly due to Las Vegas regulations limiting licensed deliveries to private residences. Also, tourists may unknowingly buy from unlicensed sellers, fueling the problem. Despite efforts to shut down illegal dispensaries, the issue remains persistent. And in northern Nevada, the third marijuana dispensary in Carson City, the capital of Nevada, opened Saturday, November 23rd. Rise Dispensary celebrated its new store opening with a ribbon cutting and swag bags for the first lucky 100 attendees. Operated by Green Thumb Industries of Chicago, the shop offers a variety of cannabis vapes and edibles. In line with Rise's commitment to community giving, all grand opening profits will be donated to the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada. That's it for the Nevada highlights and tribal nations. I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies and Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
That'll do it for the A Block, our first section of our Cannabis Coast to Coast News Roundup for this week. We have plenty more state reports for you, and later we'll share the story of a YouTuber who has caused quite a stir by blatantly lighting up on camera and offering a tribute to her deceased father by smoking a joint with his ashes sprinkled in it. Seriously, it was quite a tribute, though. Next up is Joe Parsons, our man in Virginia who found a guy in his state who is building houses out of hemp. All that and more in our state reports after this.
Today I'm here in Hardy, Virginia at the site of one of the first houses that's built almost entirely out of hemp.
Ready to take your craft to the next level? Imagine faster extractions, purer products, and more profits. Sounds good, right? At Pure 5 Extraction, we've revolutionized cannabis extraction with our game-changing technology. No solvents, no heat, just the cleanest, most natural process on the market. Whether you're a boutique grower or a large-scale operation, Pure 5 has the tools to elevate your business worldwide. Visit pure5extraction.com today. Pure 5 Extraction, because your plants deserve the best. In Willow Creek, Rory, renowned for birdwatching, embraced nature's elegance. Preparing for his woodland sojourn, he used Grape Focus THC Mist from Yellow Labs. Each spritz honed his senses, capturing avian beauty. Immersed in the forest symphony, Rory's lens froze vibrant moments. Emerging at twilight, gratitude filled him for the mist's clarity. Recalling, find Yellow Labs near you. Rory ordered more of his mist from